Hello, college football fans. Welcome back to another take of Urban's Take with Tim May, yours truly. Urban, welcome back, my man. This football season has flown past, correct?
It has, and a couple big ones left, especially for the Buckeyes and Georgia and the rivals from up north. I had to be at that Indianapolis game, and that was always one of my fears: is that sleeping giant. It was the atmosphere in Indianapolis was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Uh, give credit to where credit's due. They had a great year.
Yeah. Well, you were lucky's the way I call it, because I've always been a big college football fan. One night you're in India, one night you're in Las Vegas with your arm around Cal Whittingham, going, "Great job, coach." I mean, the guy you handed the reins to at Utah low those many years ago, and they beat USC, which basically ushered Ohio State into the playoffs. I'm not going to say the back door, but definitely the side door, right? But and then the next night you're you're on that dais, and down on the opposite end was your sworn enemy for those many years, Jim Harbaugh. And that had to be just what an experience to go through in 2 nights, right?
It was great football too.
Yeah.
Kyle Whittingham's a heck of a coach, and I tell you, they beat him every which way you could beat them. They out-toughed them. They, hit that quarterback. I think Caleb Williams, when he got dinged, the game was over. That was their main guy, obviously. So,
yeah.
And then we go to Ann Arbor, or not Ann Arbor, we go to Indianapolis, and Purdue put up a good fight. But when you control the line of scrimmage like the Wolverines do, I'll tell you, that's a really good team.
Yeah. Now that you're in this business, is that hard for you to say that about Michigan? I mean, are you learning or becoming even more of a professional from the media standpoint, that you have to be objective? What's your take on that?
I always will be a Buckeye, but I've always been that way. If someone is doing a good job, and when they don't do a good job, we have to say that. But when they play like they've been playing,
yeah.
No, I don't. It's not hard to do. I think everybody will always know I'm a Buckeye, but you got a job to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, did the College Football Playoff Committee get it right, in your opinion? I mean, I don't think there's much of a doubt unless you live in Tuscaloosa. But what's your take on Ohio State getting in there at number 4, TCU staying at number 3? Do you feel like that was the correct way of doing it?
I do. I think is TCU really one of the third best team in America? If they played Alabama, if they played, LSU, but they earned it. That's just the way it is. We covered them quite a bit. They are a heck of a team, great team. But they'll always be. And then Saban was on our show. He said, "How do you say it?
If you match them against anybody else, they'd be favored." Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, who'd be favored?
Who'd be favored? Yeah. Well, but here's the point. The one thing college football still got going for it is the regular season. The regular season counts. I mean, you lost 2 games. You could have lost 2 more. He leaves out that part of the equation. I mean, right. I mean, I think they got it right. I think TCU is that charm team this year that's fighting its butt off, fought its butt off every weekend, and didn't get beat, took overtime to beat them. I mean, I think TCU earned its right. You agree?
I do agree. I would say this, though, because I played at Tennessee and I played at LSU.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to say there's not a team in the country that gets out of those 2 games without at least 1 loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially 2 out of 3 weeks. There's no chance. So if you put TCU in that same schedule, but you don't have to. That's just the way it is. So I think they got it right.
Yeah. And by the way, the key phrase there was 1 loss. 2, 2, you got beat twice. That's the way I look at it. You said the middle of the year. We're just getting this one done here. Said the middle of the year that after one of those Ohio State games that you thought Marvin Harrison Jr. might not be just the best receiver in college football. He might be the best player in college football. And obviously the Heisman's coming up this weekend. He didn't get invited to New York City, but do you still stand by that statement to a certain extent about what you saw from Marvin Harrison Jr., Ohio State's elite receiver this season?
I do. I think he's the most impactful player there is, most talented. His future is Imagine what his future is going to look like in about 2 years.
Yeah.
He'll be the top 5 pick. Uh, I understand he's a great person. He works his tail off, comes from a great family. So yeah, I think he's the best player in college football. I really do.
You don't have a Heisman vote, do you?
No.
Yeah, I do have one, so I'm not allowed to say who I voted for yet until it's announced. But I do want to run this by you. C.J. Stroud, Ohio State quarterback. Caleb Williams, USC quarterback. Stetson Bennett, Georgia's quarterback. Kind of underrated what he brings to that team, in my opinion, still, even though he won a national championship last year. And Max Duggan, TCU quarterback. Those are the finalists for the Heisman. Do you have any qualms with any of those four? And who, in your opinion, since you don't have a vote, you can say it, who, in your opinion, jumped out this year, maybe should be that guy on Saturday night? And the reason I'm asking you that is I would take almost any one of those four to run my team. I really, truly would. One's maybe a little more outstanding doing this, that, and the other, but all four of them have shown outstanding qualities and the ability to get wins. So I'm running that by you, Coach. You get the first draft pick.
You know, it's amazing how it finished. It was like Caleb Williams won it, and then they lost, and he got hurt. It was like C.J. Stroud won it, and then had a couple rough outings, and then lost to the Wolverines. So I think they got the right guys. Hendon Hooker is another guy that I would probably throw in there and brought him to New York. For some reason, the Heisman Trust, they started making small groups. I always thought bring as many as you can. That's a great experience. I've been there a few times with some quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Or players. So it's a great experience. You're going to try to make me guess one. I think it's going to be between Caleb and C.J. Stroud.
Yeah. And finally, why do you say that? Obviously, C.J. Stroud was given up for gone, after the Michigan game. And yet when you look back on that game, he put a couple of 3 or 4 passes right on the money that if caught would have changed that game. You know what I mean? He kind of sort of did his part. But I mean, why do you say that about Stroud and Williams? Just in a nutshell.
I think they're the two. They're statistically, they're so good.
Yeah. And accurate.
Dominant player. Caleb Williams. And then C.J. Stroud, midway through the season was over. It was his. Yeah. And then he had a couple of tough outings, the Northwestern one, which, that wasn't his fault. It was just a terrible day. And then he had a couple slow days. And then, it's amazing. I'd love to find out what does a voter look for? Is it the best player in college football? Is that what you're supposed to do? Most impactful on a winning team?
Yeah.
What are you voting for? If you're voting for the best player, I think it's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
Most impactful, I think, is C.J. Stroud or Caleb Williams.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'm not going to tell you what I vote for. Oh, I vote for the guy that I think is the most impactful on a good team, because Paul Hornung won it way back when his team only won 2 games. But that's so long ago, it's ridiculous. And how do you even judge he's the best player? You know what I mean? Yeah. I just look at guys who stand there in the clutch and deliver. That doesn't mean their team necessarily delivers every time, but and that's why Max Duggan was on my finalist list, man. Wow. Hey, real quick before we move to checkmate moment, as you look at these 3 weeks out, what intrigues you the most about these 2 matchups in the college football playoff semifinal, Ohio State versus Georgia, and what's the other one? Heck, I'm drawing a blank. Yeah,
TCU Wolverines.
TCU Wolverines. Yeah, exactly. I had team up north in my head. What intrigues you about each of those matchups? Just looking at it ahead of time.
I've already watched Georgia a little bit, and obviously we've covered Ohio State quite a bit. Ohio State's skill is going to match up. Where you're just going to see if they match up is they got a classic SEC defensive line.
Yeah,
they're big, thick guys that can run, and that. When I first went to Ohio State, that was my mission. I wanted to get speed into skill, and I just had this vision, and I would challenge our coaches constantly about the SEC defensive lineman. And that's how I would always, when they brought in their recruit, I'd tell them, could that kid play in the SEC? And if he couldn't, we're not going to recruit him. So we changed the mentality of what we're looking for. And Georgia's really good. Kirby Smart, back-to-back is so hard to do. uh, especially when he lost all the players they lost. So the classic matchup is going to be offensive line, defensive line, and D-line, O-line, the two working against each other.
Yeah. The same thing in that Michigan TCU game. I mean, TCU had the strength.
TCU is different. They're a 3-3-5 defense. And so they don't have the big guys up front. What they are is fast, athletic, and there's a difficult scheme to prepare for.
Yeah.
That's the exact opposite of Georgia. Georgia's big, thick NFL players everywhere. TCU's, that's not what they have. What they have is a really good scheme, really well coached. They play their hearts out.
Yeah. Amen. Well, that said, okay, let's get to checkmate moment, because neither you nor I are up to 100% today from a feeling good standpoint. TCU fights its way back, gets to overtime. Max Dugan is doing it. I mean, he is selling out. You know, that was a great phrase that Kirk Herbstreit had after that one series of plays. He gets get that man some oxygen, because he's just sitting on the end of the bench, you know, and trying to breathe heavy. And he wills his team literally back into that game. They get to overtime. He gets them down to the 2-yard line. And the last two downs that TCU ran this season were handoffs to the running back, where he got stuffed both times. They go for it on fourth down, don't get a touchdown. And then, of course, Kansas State gets the ball back, gets it down there, and kicks the winning field goal in overtime. And I mean, that's a checkmate moment, because you're that close, and you've been there, man. Not that close. You've been there to an unbeaten season. You're that close to a 13-0 run, keeping an unbeaten season alive. And those were your two play calls. In my opinion, though, that wasn't what I would have put the ball in my quarterback's hands and let him do something. That's me. What's your take on that?
I think, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Tim Tebow, if I have Zeke Elliott, I'd put it in his hands. But the one thing about running your quarterback, you get an extra blocker. And that's why we did that so much. And I never really understood the whole idea of everybody pack it in there and hand the ball to tailback. They're just, they can plus you. And that's what happened. I was kind of shocked they did that. I thought they'd spread them out and run Duggins.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a checkmate moment with Urban Meyer. That's the end of our regular season version of Urban's Take with Tim May. We'll be back the week of the college football playoff semifinals with another version of this. But Urban, I've really enjoyed this run, my man, and I hope you're feeling better next time we're talking. We'll both be in Atlanta by that point. But real quick, do you look forward to the holiday season now that you don't have a game hanging over your head? I mean, how does that change your demeanor?
Well, you get in a routine, and our ratings were up a big new kickoff. We got along great. We had on the road the whole time, so it's like, let's go. We're all joking around on the text last night saying, hey, where are we at next?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, ESPN has the playoffs, so we won't get any of that. And so I'm going to enjoy the grandkids, the holiday season, and hopefully a Buckeye win.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable Urban Meyer. Appreciate you joining me, Urban. We'll see you next time. Until then, we'll see you, folks.